Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Folks, eventually here I'm going to read, I think, the Ethno State in a series of playlists, by Wilmot Robertson. But for today, we're still just going to trigger people. That's mainly what we do here. We trigger people. It's fun, right? Essentially, the the movement, the white nationalist movement as such, doesn't very much do. It's, okay? Now, that's why we were so like, why right on. When alt-right, the alt-right, and the Donald Trump manga from America First stuff was all pushing forward towards a more right of center, make everything more right acceptable thing. Yes, well, okay. Now, on the other hand, I guess there's just how this is how it is. One, a person, you can complain about minorities, Jews, homosexuals, and the rest, whom I think I need a little piece of white here. I'm the first one who will tell you, yes, my son, it is good to oppose them. Right? Absolutely. Look in my eyes and tell me I'm kidding you. Right? So, let's get past that, shall we? Once we've gotten past that, what it comes to is this. You can be sort of a sick caricature of these pussy liberals, with their, I'm so outraged. I'm so outraged. Clutch your fucking pearls and all that shit. All the time. Forever. Like a bunch of, who to mention? What do you want me to say? Okay? Or you can think of objective ways to push, work, make what you want happen. Okay? I don't know. When I think about it, I think to myself, maybe me trying to make it happen the way we want is better than boo hoo, boo hoo. Wouldn't you say? Doesn't that seem reasonable to you? That, yeah, okay, we all agree. Yeah, sure, we want an ethno state. Okay? For whatever reason, we don't like living with this shotgun marriage with diversity. Do we agree on that? Then why do we have to blame any of these people? We simply want a divorce, and blaming them's friggin' irrelevant. But proceeding with the divorce, separating from them, and making the conditions possible for ourselves that we can be away from them, that's for us. They're obviously, their maximum advantage lays in bleeding us white, or whiter than I already am pink. But you do get the idea. Yeah? That's where their maximal advantage lays. You see? So why wouldn't they try that? Of course they're going to. But our maximal advantage doesn't lay in taking this and oh, okay, just death cult this, throw us right in the oven, woohoo. No. Be apart, separate, divorce, shotgun marriage, leave. Okay? It doesn't even seem that crying about anyone is necessary. What seemed to be most important here is knowing who wants to be with who and which groups want who with them. Now, those are two very important but different things, because you can want to be with someone, but they may not want you. Rough. I know. Rough. Rejection. Ooh, it's bad stuff, but there it is. It's reality. And if we force people to take people that they reject in time, there will be see Hutu and Tutsi. I'd rather avoid all that. Okay? Now, the way to avoid that is to fully allow people to say, I want to be with these people, I don't want to be with these people, allow full movement. Do you understand? So they can simply arrange themselves how they want. And how people have done this until very recently when they were forced by loan directives and all sorts of other government diktats, was basically they lived apart from each other. There were ethnic enclaves, with different kind of cultural, even within the ethnicities, like say within white, you'd have the WASPs, the kind of Catholics, they kind of cluster all together too, and that's normal, acceptable. Everyone should find that to be fine. I do. You see? Okay. Well, the whole thing is that this multicultural, multiracial nonsense isn't working. So what we'd like is to divorce back down to these proper communities. All we need to know is who belongs in these communities. And then we can have, in theory, a better existence. Everyone. Because look, okay, this will even sound altruistic. This can even be my liberal moment. Yeah. See, okay, the poor blacks. Okay, the poor blacks. Well, if the white cops, the Polish cops, and the Irish cops, and the Italian cops were to simply leave all these East Coast cities, just imagine if they did, and they went to the rural northeastern part of the country and just set up an ethno-state with all the natives there and made it work amongst themselves. They could. It's perfectly possible. Have all the resources, everything's there. Okay? So that would leave the blacks in total possession of these, I hesitate to call them cities, urban zones. We're going to call them urban zones. These urban zones. So then, you already know, these black gangs would run riot. But in time, either one of them would become Shaka Zulu and establish some kind of semblance of order, or they would take it upon themselves to reestablish order, and they would be responsible for themselves. They couldn't blame Whitey no more. They couldn't blame, anybody. Understand? I mean, I guess if the Hebrew on the corner that wanted to loan him money wanted to stay. Otherwise, I would advise that they go to Israel, in this situation, because they wouldn't be coming with us. They're Christians only, yeah. White Christians only. Rough. Christendom. We just call it New Christendom. Good stuff. It's both a religion and an identity. It's doubly good. You see? So no. But again, people who didn't want this, we go do whatever you're going to do. Just as long as you don't try to come into our lands and our area and tell us what we're going to do. Just it. Right? And this, I think, would work better for everyone. Even the smallest minority communities rule themselves better than they're ruled by anyone else. Okay? And let's be realistic. This monstrosity that is the modern multicultural, I don't even want to call it America because it's not. There's only just but part of it that's America. Those red areas, that's mostly America. But even part of that's occupied Mexico. It's going to crumble, It's going to, at some point, I just say, it's better to just stop this whole marriage now and come back to something like sanity. Because again, the reason it's going to collapse isn't necessarily the multiculturalism, though that will cause friction and violence at home. It's reality. You can't will it away and you can't educate it away. It's instinctual and it's the way it is. And moreover, you'll never, in your lifetimes, not in 50,000 years, unless you exterminate all of the male whites, breed the whites out. You don't have enough minorities and whites. Whites simply have faced more adversity than the other races. We're not some cupcake weak people. I don't know exactly what you people thought you were going to just glad handle us. Like, oh look, they're a low IQ bunch. No. Even our low IQ people relative are high IQ compared to the others. Meaning that a large group of our people, 500, there's always a couple of geniuses, a couple of really good administrators, a couple of people who can get shit done, and a whole bunch of people who are bright enough to do all this when they're told to. Okay? No other race has this. The other races survive by the rat process. They simply produce as many as they can. The Chinamen are close. They're close. And the Japs, kind of, but the Japanese are not exactly a threat here. It's not like it's, there's thousands of Japanese running around mainland America, because if that's all it was, Japanese are easy people to make a deal. We just cut a deal. We'd be divorced. We'd be done. Done. Okay. And, you know, they're not. They don't carry it around quite like the blacks or these Mexicans with their insane Aztec history that it just never was. Okay. I don't know if any of you know about that. That's the Ozatlan nonsense. No, just no such reality. You know, and again, the blacks they're even more off the chain with it. I've heard things in prison that just spin your head. You wouldn't actually believe some of the insane things that they tell each other that you hear in the middle of the day room. You can't miss it. I mean, they're there like Wildlife America, you know, with the one and then the rest around them and the gay ones, and I mean, you know, right? It's outright something else, but. And there you are, you know, and you're playing cards, and you'll hear things like the Book of the Knowledge. The Book of the Knowledge. Top quality story of this. You see, basically, the white apes, that's you and I, we were created by Jacob Satan. Oh, yeah. And, see, to do this, he had to steal the Book of the Knowledge from the black man. Okay? Which really, they was gods originally. Because, you know, the Anunnaki of the Sumerians? All Negroes. Straight Negroes from space. I'm not even kidding you. Now, if you think that you can maintain while you're listening to that playing cribbage, you're insane. Okay, so there I am. I'm outright off the fucking steel seat, laughing. Just, I mean, you know, I was a much younger man, and I could do it if I had to, you know. All right, so the sergeant comes over. Doesn't matter. Bowers, I think was his name. He comes over and he's like, he's gonna piss test me basically. And I was like, dude, go stand over by that post, over by where they were, you know, congregating, and listen to the yip yap they're talking about, man. And he says, well, just go do it, you know. And you know that's pretty cool. See why I did it. And comes to be about a minute till movement. He goes outside. The movement comes and we gotta go outside. I mean, it's, you know, movements, you know, you can go out to yards, you can go to library, okay, at any rate. So, we go out to the yard, and Bowers is around the friggin' side of the building, hitting the side of the building on his knees, just basically beat his face against the building, laughing so much. Oh, man, it's good times. Kind of fun you can do, you know. The only more fun time I had in prison was pushing the pushmower outside in spring. They thought they were punishing me. Punishing me with sunlight and quiet and no Negroes. What? What kind of punishment is this? You know, I mean, I got in line for this punishment. I tried to get punished. Please write me up, will you, Sergeant? Seriously. I did. I got myself 50 hours of that. I mean, it was great. You know what I mean? It was lovely. I mean, just the grass was I took care of grass before. I liked it, you know. I'm not even gonna lie. It was good time. It was way better than spending time with low lives. You know? At least the guys out there were doing work, you know what I mean? And they proved to be a little more solid people. So I mean that's blacks. That's my experience with blacks, okay? And I you know, so people who say, "Oh, you don't know about black," but I do. You know? And even though I'm a hillbilly, I've also lived in the urbans over here. Well, you don't even know. Until you've lived with blacks here and white trash meth tweakers here, you've never really experienced life. Holy God, like, my Lord, right? And I even admit at the time, that an angelic being, you know. I've always been a little off, you know. But, you know what I mean? It always just seemed like these police are letting this happen. They have to. Because, you know, if I was policeman, I had that badge, I want to tell you right now, some of these things that I seen going down, they wouldn't be for long. You know? It'd be like the Green River Murderer, but not with prostitutes. It'd be with pimps and lowlifes and dope dealers. And there'd be a few broads, too, because some of them are real trash, too. But, you know, oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, if I had a badge, it'd just be stacked up in the hills. Stacked. Stacked Serbian forest. I'm not even a liar about it. Okay? Because, I mean, let's be realistic, folks. You know, this society's cooked. You know, and it isn't just blacks either. I mean, these meth heads, these heroin addicts, just these, I mean, they're creatures, they're beasts. They're nominally whites, but they're not really whites. You know what I mean? And then there's the blacks, and then some of the Mexicans too. You know, and it isn't all the blacks. There are some of them who, I mean, you know, some of the older, mellow, like male blacks that are, you know, they're all right. I mean, they're decent. You know, it doesn't mean I want to live with thousands of the others, but they're okay. They're the first victim of these little savages that I had to be in prison with. You know, well, them and anything that's smaller and weaker than them. That's my experience with them too. Right? You see, so you know, you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to. You want to be. You want them to think that you can fucking hurt them. That's that. Right? You want them to think you can hurt them. Absolutely. I advise some boiling water thrown on one of them. Works like a champion. Will commendably push your cause. It'll also tell the guards they're not dealing with a fucking amateur. That's important. But, you see, this is why when we do take over and have ethno-state, I want to be secret policeman, chief of police, head of prisons. Right? I've been in them. See, I understand that both on the one hand they're weak and on the other hand they're cruel. They're just useless all the way around. I could turn them into very effective labor harvesting mechanisms. Mm-hmm. And also I could make people very contrite, very sad that they had to be under my supervision. Very sad indeed. I do mean really morally sad, not wanting to cry just because. That would be the beginning of it, though. You see? But on the other hand, I also see that the prisons as they are now, they're morally debilitating, you see. So they both don't teach people any kind of contriteness of why they're morally wrong or anything, no. And they encourage more degeneracy with the people that are released. This is, this doesn't make any sense to me, right? What would make sense is a series of labor camps where you're going to be up at X time and you're going to work, and if you don't, you're going to go into a very small box and you're going to stay in there until you starve or you work. That's it. You no other choice. You can be a martyr or you can work. Then you won't even be a martyr because no one outside the prison will have ever known your name. And since I can fully control communication even between cell blocks, you just won't have ever existed for all purposes. Convicts are easily distracted and bought. So, you see? Right, but I mean, if you're going to have a huge prison population like we do, there should be work coming out of them. Well, it's good for them as well. Don't act like this is some evil I'm doing here. No. No, these men can either sit around and do nothing, or they can do something productive. I mean, this is a night and day thing. It's stark, you know. My sense is anything is good. You know, even for the more trustable ones, work outside the prison, cleaning roads, clearing up brush, preparing, taking care of state parks in spring right before they clean there, doing the maintenance and stuff, helping with it at any rate. You know, and then regular paid people can do it throughout the year like they do. It doesn't conflict. It also gives the public a noticeable benefit of the whole thing. Everyone has to have something in the pie, right? Remember, domestic industries, certain select industries, would have access to very cheap labor, packing, that kind of thing. Butchery. You don't have to pay them peanuts. You don't have to pay them nothing. It's just, pay them just slightly lower than what, the Mexicans that have it now That way you can break the illegal market and still have domestic things and create profit margin and so forth. And everyone gets their piece of the pie. We were just talking about that nobody has to go hungry because this is a humongous pie. Right? We're not in we don't have a problem of deficiency. We have a problem of surplus. You see? Okay? So let's stop thinking like we're all crocodiles and we're running out of water, because we're not. And that's bad logic. It creates bad outcomes that need not exist, particularly in the first world. I mean, in the first world, our problem is how to destroy production, how to get rid of the things that are made, not how to consume them. My God. More and more the problem is going to the second world. You know. And I don't know if the planet will survive the next little bit, because, well, you know. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Now, folks, I guess I do drunken rants. It's all right. When you force a web forum to make special rules to confine you, you're doing pretty damn good, folks. I like me. No, really, I just do this because, you know, I have a lot of ideas in my head, and why just sit here and let them go to waste? Modern world allows me to record them, and the ones that I think are decent, send out. You see? Why not? I mean, you know, if you don't want to watch them, you can, of course, skip right over them, I suppose. Many people do, you know, right? But no, folks, I'm definitely not drunk. That's one thing, so we know, yours truly does not do. Though I'm not a prude about these things. I frankly don't care, except for there's only 3 main drugs and then a couple small classes of drugs that I would not approve of if I was like ruling a country. Now, the 3 main ones would be methamphetamines, heroin, and cocaine. Oh, sorry, I was working outside earlier. But I would not tolerate those 3. There's no way. They're destructive long term. Do you understand? But on the other hand, I wouldn't be crazy like we are now about opioids. I'd just allow people to grow poppies and have a little juice when they want it, and this would completely destroy the market for any black market in it, like immediately. You know, very few people will willingly choose to become that hooked on morphine if they have an actual choice. And frankly, I would rather have people who are morphine addicts, you know, are actual, you know, morphine addicts, not dependent on morphine, not dependent on state welfare, and completely detached from the gangs. And the easiest way to do that is to ensure they get a very, 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 very small amount of raw opium every day, which will keep away the shaky, shitty, bone breaky. It's not cool, right? It's not fun. And, you know, most people can't tolerate it. I'm a little tougher than all than that, but it's still not fun. Of that, and it's simple. I mean, you know, and then of course studies have proven that they function like any other person. Their upper brain functions works just fine. The problem, of course, is that if you have a great pain that's going to come every time you don't do a certain thing, you're going to do whatever it takes to get rid of the great pain. Well, I'm saying make the great pain only cost like a penny less, a couple hours, some water poured on the ground. You see. But cocaine cannot be fixed in this way. There's no maximal amount that people will take without expiring. There are a few people who have discipline with cocaine. I don't like cocaine at all. I've tried it before. I hate the fucking shit for the simple reason that I don't like feeling like, oh, I'm all happy. Fuck that. I'm a much more dour and sour person, and I like it that way. Thank you very much. That shit's, I don't even know what Negroes get out of that, man. Okay, I really just don't. But I know that it turns most people into they're wretches on it, you know. And speed is, you know, again, there's no maximal upper limit. People just use it until it destroys their entire life. I mean, it's very biologically, chemically anti-controllable as far as it goes, you know. Because the system that it tweaks with in your mind up here inherently has no stop, there's too much of this. No, 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 no. That's not how that works. And you see, this is bad. The smaller categories of things would be the psychedelic amphetamines. Most of them, there's a few of them that are still obscure and light. You know, you can't really get high on them. I wouldn't care to outlaw them, but you know, and most psychedelics. I mean, frankly, if you want to go out into the forest and get some shrooms and get high, go ahead, have fun. Okay, but if you make it in a lab, I'll have you shot. See how easy that is. And if you grow them artificially, I'll have you broken, as in your fingers will be laid down and smashed. But you can go pick them out of the forest and get as twisted as you want to, because yeah, personally, I think they're pretty harmless, but I don't want everyone high on them all the time, so, you see. Cannabis, do as much as you want. Beer, drink, have fun. Whiskey, yeah. Just, as long as you don't drive drunk or kill anybody while you do anything stupid on any of those things, I don't give a shit, you see. I'm actually rather relaxed about all this. You know, and of course there'll be people who do silly things like, you know, smoke nutmeg and whatever. Okay, have fun. Go ahead. You won't want to do that after you try that a couple of times, you know. All of this, the herbal medicines that can get you high if you eat them and drink teas, and oh, go ahead, have fun. I've tried a good portion of them in my days when I was a kid. Most of them aren't very enjoyable. Particularly that one about the nutmeg and the what is it, allspice? Yes, they come from the same thing. God almighty, it tastes so horrendous, and you have to take so much of it to get tipped. It's terrible stuff. It's terrible, right? Okay, well, go ahead. You know, I'm perfectly willing to let people do stupid things like that. Just like, I mean, if they want to take, say, Angelicia and boil it out and get zipped off the tea, yeah, have fun. Go ahead, do what you gotta do, you know. I mean, you see, I'm not a control freak like these war on drug people. I would just have secret police right down amongst the people that would root out the labs and the dealers, and we would go to their houses every once in a while, like the Australian, South African secret police used to, and just come in, kill them all, burn their shit down, and leave. Point blank. Yeah. Put a little notice vacation outside, you know. Hear ye, you know. Let it be known. That kind of a thing, you know. Right. No fucking regard for anything like their human rights. They're scum that are harming people's lives purposely with chemicals that they know will fuck people off. Do you see? Okay? I mean, there's no moral justification for what they're doing. Particularly, it isn't like, you know, people say, well, yeah, I mean, you're a stiff. You're forcing people to live this straight. I just told you, you're going to have bars. You could have hash bars for all I gave a goddamn. Okay? Wouldn't even affect me. I'm not saying I would be in a hash bar all day like some Paja. I don't like hash. But no, I mean, do you understand? I mean, I don't think anybody should be in there all day. But I would much rather they'd be smoking hash, which we can get them twisted around right off of quick and easy. Like, that's it, just to boot up the ass away. Than gone on speedballs. Do you know? Okay? I would just rather it that way. I would rather that, you know, people enjoy, you know, drinking beer with weird herbs in it. That was done during the Middle Ages a lot. And getting tipped, however, okay. As long as they understand the consequences of doing it while you do certain things, boating, driving, flying a plane, you know, right? Okay? Now, you can say, I'm brutal and I ignore this and that. I don't care about paper rules. I care about fucking justice. You know, and living people. You see, while you people fuck around with your paper rules, okay, there are literally scumbags running the streets of America. Now, this isn't even third world countries where this happens. That they literally intimidate whole neighborhoods of people, sometimes rural trailer parks, in fact, into paying them money, into keeping quiet. They rape their daughters. They string them all out on drugs. What the fuck does your paperwork do for them? Now, if I was chief of police or head judge, you can just call me the chief secret policeman judge. Yeah, that's what I'd like to be. None of this would have to happen. All of this could end. Because, you see, don't think I wouldn't black bag the couple important ones and bring them to a fucking convenient location and give them a little introduction to the Phoenix program. They'd tell me what I want to know. Do you understand? Where did you get this from? Who? do you work for? You understand? They would tell me fast. I don't even think I'd have to hurt most of them. I think all I'd have to do is show them someone being hurt randomly. And they would immediately want to talk. Honestly. Like big boys. Because remember, we'd verify. You see? Now, are you going to weep because some low-life heroin dealer is going to have his finger crushed in a vice? Does this bother you? Well, then don't ask me about it, and you won't have to hear about it. You see? Does it bother you now that you're not hearing about it? I bet you not a goddamn bit. And whatever bit of, oh, that's play acting. No one feels a fuck dick for them other than people on their payroll, people making money off the corruption, and lawyer scum who fake outrage on command, like prostitutes. Nobody else cares about them, you understand? Nobody. Now, there are also many other kinds of criminals like this. People who do kid porn, kidnap people, harm people, do you understand? And they should be simply black-bagged and tossed down a very, very deep well shaft. There are lots of them. About 1,800 of them in the United States, in fact. Right. Old mines that are... Well, the volume underground is enough to put 3 times the amount of people allegedly killed in the Holocaust. So, hey. And that's a 12 million figure that they're peddling. You gotta think big. You see? Oh, yeah. I don't think it's like every criminal's going to go out this way. Shit, no. We're not dumb. We're also not brutally stupid. We're also not psychotic, you see. What we are is selective. There are simply certain people who cannot be allowed to continue to share our error, or they will cause many more people harm. Now, what do you want me to say? How would you like me to stop them? To sing angelic songs at them and suggest to them that they cease? Would you like that we just, oh, please be good and generous, will you? Do you think that works? Do you wager that works? Yeah. So somebody has to have the spine, the wherewithal, to actually understand what must be done here. Now, what do you want me to say? Any of you lawyers who think you're going to move against me, I don't give a shit. Your prisons are full of people who agree with me. Lots of them. Take me to my kingdom. Okay? I just don't care about you. You see, again, you people in your fucking forms, while you sit there and play fucking games, the southern border is being invaded. Invaded. By people carrying sacks of drugs and God knows what, guns, maybe, who knows what. In fact, because the idea of Mexico doesn't have guns is friggin' absurd. There's a lot of guns along the border there with Mexico. A lot of guns. A lot of guns. Something like a fifth of the amount of guns in the United States are right along that corridor there where the 3 main cartels, is it still 3? Maybe 2 now, but are duking it out. Last I knew, I seen foreign affairs, like a diagram in one of their news articles, and yeah, that's the important people news, not the parole stuff. Yeah, that's why, Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, we're breathing. We like to trigger people. It's fun, right? But no. Beyond just liking that, we enjoy the death threats. It's so much. It's invigorating, Ooh, you want to take my life? Well. Proceed with pace. C'est la vie. Best game to you. You see, if these people would only just put as much effort into changing policy and creating ethnic communities and creating consciousness as they do into hating people who tell them how it is, mountains, they could be moved. Oh well. Right? Oh well. Now, we were talking about creating consciousness. That's it's kind of one of those correct observations that the on the ground sort of cadres of the communists had, and it's you have to get people to think that what you're saying is correct. You have to make sense to people, right? And you have to provide solutions to things that seem reasonable compared to the problem. And that more or less, in the communist parlance, is progressive. Now, we don't want that. No. But what we would want is answers that push for ethno-nationalist satisfactory solutions. You see, and so this isn't impossible. You can modify things. You can say, and there are usually some good things in every possible group of things, if you get a large enough group, particularly when we're talking about 50 million communists across. However, their cadres did do successfully. Now, let's not lie. This is why we had to fight them militarily. If they wouldn't have, we wouldn't have. Okay. So, how did they do that? They created consciousness. They found real problems, and they offered realistic, plausible, real-world solutions based on, okay? It's just that simple. It's just that easy. Now, I'm not saying that we go and we break out Karl Marx. No, I would rather we burnt Karl Marx and we just torch the whole socialist section except for very, very select writers, which really shouldn't be in there. They're not materialist Marxists. I mean, let's see, they're not. Penty's one of these. He's not. He has a whole just diatribe about Marxism in the beginning of one of his books. It's evident that he's not on board with their methods at all. Not all. So, his works remain. You said his works. Anyone who approved of Marx at the time, and the communists and all their works would be burnt. You see, so. But what I'm saying is that these Bolsheviks, these Mensheviks, these other, successful revolutionary groups that get beyond just the armed gang phase, right? Or there's the other way too, because it can go both ways. It can go armed gang up to something like a political operation, or airy intellectual stuff that makes the leap into political operation and kind of usually finds some muscle. Right. For those to be successful, there has to be some percentage of people who believe their thing. Yeah. True. Yes. No. Maybe. Anyone? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, why do people believe it? Who cares? What's important is, what do you want people to believe now? That's what's important. You see? If you get people's consciousness, their thoughts, their thinking attuned to what your program is, or if your program attunes to their thoughts, either way, it's both the same in the end, then they're going to want to do what you want. And that will make them motivated. And motivated people get things done. They have will, zeal, spirit. I don't know, there's a few other words we could use, yeah? They believe in themselves. Confidence, maybe even might be the word we use. Okay? They have a certain certainty of overall success, even if they might individually be crushed. This is not unknown to history, this kind of almost crusader zeal. Now, I don't know. If you think of it like this, the first men that went down the Ho Chi Minh Trail for quite a long time were volunteer formations. Okay, so these people traveled 200 miles to the jungle of Laos in Cambodia, some of the most it's bad terrain for us. Voluntarily, so they could fight a war that they could have crossed the DMZ and engaged in, or just traveling a few miles from what is that, Do Hong or whatever the staging areas there in the south. Whew. Okay, that's some dedication, folks. That requires zeal. You say it just requires fear and whatnot, but if that's the case, why did all the way along did they have these, sort of, I don't know what you might even call entertainment centers, where people sung and danced and And of course, all the singing and dancing was about how their inevitable victory would come about and how the great system that brought them victory was, la 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 la. But we have to admit they did roll into Saigon in 1975. After just taking a pounding, an utter pounding for years by us. I mean, we beat the living shit out of these people. Okay? That's the truth. They really took a hammer and they really, really earned their victory. I don't know what to say. You can hate that, but I don't have to steal from my enemy for my people's part to be good. The enemy simply won. That's that. What can I say? They held out longer than our resolve could continue, which was their strategic plan from the beginning. Though they tried several times, and with probable success, to win on the battlefield, there's Tet was a failure because they had two different calendars that were off by 24 hours. If all of the troops had moved on the same day, it's hard to say it would have turned out the same, for sure. Particularly in Saigon. Yeah, if that had all been hit on the same day, it all could have turned out like way further north, where they occupied the city. They sacked out the government. They literally seized it on the march, just boom, just like that, And these are jungle guerrillas that did this. So, they were led by competent NVA officers in many cases, but still, it was quite the little thing. It was quite the feat, Now, the troops that wound up holding it against us were actual NVA, but again, there wasn't very many. It was only a battalion or so, and they held out, right? And they were ordered to hold to the last, and that's essentially what they did. They're fighters. If you look at what the ferocity of what it took to retake Wei, just particularly the Citadel, from them, they're fighters. I don't have to steal from enemies, you say. I don't have to do this. It's not necessary for me. They're ferocious little fuckers, Anyone who could take the bombing out in front of Khe Sanh and then withdraw their formations is... They have a will to win, do you understand? They're in it to fight. I don't have to put them down and make fun of them. Yeah, that's pretty impressive shit when you think about it, But basically, at Khe Sanh, all they did was hang out 4 or 5 divisions, use them to probe the base, and then they just got pummeled by air power. Just, God almighty, there's just a certain level of, wow. That many B-52s dropping on that small an area, it's impressive. It's impressive there was anyone left in there to pull out in order, but they didn't lose that much of their complements by, very little. Okay? This is because we've been bombing them for a while, and they learned how to dig in. This is because, again, I don't know. Other than non-fortified cities like Dresden, the Germans never punked them by bombing their cities. Okay, sure, it intimidated them in the beginning. It crippled their life, but then they went underground like rats, and they lived, and they survived. And this is what everyone does under air power, and that's just the way it is. They make tunnels, they make, caverns, they go into stone, bomb shelters, and so forth. And this is exactly what the North Vietnamese did, and so they were very acquainted with this kind of thing. They were very, very acquainted. In some cases, some of the people there were little children at one point and had learned the fundamentals of shooting down planes and knowing which planes did what, and this was part of their school education. The Vietnamese were serious about winning again, and we weren't. We were Coca-Cola and rock and roll and heroin, and right? And it shows. I don't say, right? It shows. It's just, there it is. Let me make it clear. The whole asinine concept of fucking defending the puppet state of South Vietnam from South Vietnam, given its geography, no goddamn way. We either had to punk the Chinese, right, and go full on against the North Koreans, and by that I mean or North Vietnamese. By that I mean drop in men behind them, between them and China, take their port with Russia, and just hammer them. Okay, that would have been the only realistic option. We'd have had to seize Ho Chi Minh. There's no good options here. Do you understand? Okay, folks, let's go back a ways. Let's have some fun, shall we? Let's go back a ways. At the end of World War II, Ho was a hero. I'm sorry, I just don't have to tell you. His people, the people around him too, were also heroes in their own right, because they all resisted the Japanese in various ways, the Japanese occupation of Indochina. You see? Okay. Now, the English and the French wanted to recolonize Indochina. I guess, I don't know how they thought that was going to happen with all these armed Viet Minh cadres running around, but okay. Whatever you want to call it. However you want to throw the dice, Chief. So, essentially, Ho would have won an election. There's no way around it. Us, the French, the British, we finagled the splitting of the country into two parts and all this. Well, anyway, Ho Chi Minh had to deal with it. The reason he had to deal with it is because the Kuomintang had a humongous army in northern Vietnam, and they were just liberating the area. I believe also, no, excuse me, not the Kuomintang, the actual communists had a large army, and they were looting. They were doing exactly what the Russians were doing in Eastern Europe. Okay. At any rate, to get rid of these Chinese, Ho had to make a deal. He made a deal with the French. The deal was that there was going to be an election. Okay. In the meantime, there was some idiot Bodai. He was it would be like putting a Habsburg on the throne again, kind of thing. Anyhow, he was about as popular as a brick. Right? Ho Chi Minh was popular. Okay. I know that's screwy. I know you don't like it. But I can't. Look. You go watch the crowds, which are filmed by Americans. And let me make that clear. The Americans are the people who helped these Vietnamese form the resistance against the Japanese, our Secret Service at the time, the OSS. And you tell me that those crowds don't like the man. You tell me that's fake enthusiasm. No. I've seen plenty of Russian crowds. No. Nope. You know what I'm saying? The man was extremely popular. So was General was that Jap. Extremely well liked. Do you see how this works? Okay. He would have won an election. He probably should have won an election. Okay? It would have saved us 50,000 troops, and we could have just bought rubber from the little dinks. So much simpler. Right? So much easier. They would have needed capital assistance, and the Chinese didn't have it. The Russians didn't have extra to give them. Okay? So, Ho Chi Minh could have been ours. He could have been our little strange nationalist commie. Yeah. Yep. Okay? He even tried writing his Declaration of Independence absolutely in the style of the American one. Go read it. It's intense. Okay? But his points aren't exactly invalid. Okay? It's not like it's unreasonable. What he's saying is he just wants his people to be free, and once they're free, they're going to choose this economic system because that's how they want to go. And yeah, largely would have been acceptable. There was very few deaths in North Vietnam. Stop with the bullshit. There were less than 20,000 people killed in the land nationalization. That's very few for a communist country. Like, fucking laughable, frankly. Laughable, right? The Chinese kill that many people in province. So, what do you want me to try to say? I mean, I can use my brain and look at things and understand that, on the whole, this wasn't an unpopular thing. I'm not saying I want it. I'm not saying it had been my vote. I probably would have tried to move into Cambodia or something to get away from it. But there it is, right? Okay. I mean, even in South Vietnam, the CIA propaganda about how the cadres operated, and yeah, they did conduct executions and political assassinations. There's absolutely no doubt of this. But the part that's very not discussed is that this was a two-way thing. Is that the Saigon government and the CIA, I don't even know how many other organizations, really nobody does this, is a dirty part of this little war, did the same thing. So in the beginning, basically, what would happen is, say, a guy would be found to be pro-Viet Cong, would be shot by the Diem government. Then, of course, they would put in a pro-Diem guy, right? Not unsurprisingly. And then, what would happen? Middle of the night, Viet Cong would come, they would shoot that guy. You get it? But the effect comes down to, again, for millions of villagers to live in the area where these rebels occupy and not flee. I mean, you can't make people stay in that kind of numbers. It's not possible. Look at Africa. When a revolution like the RUF, there's a classic example that's completely different than the Viet Cong. Completely different in the sense that wherever the RUF went, all the villagers tried to flee. They tried to leave because, the RUF people, that's Revolutionary United Front Afrikaan or something, they were friggin' just barbarians, running around chopping off arms, raping people with machetes, and just, oh man. Did you understand? Now, the Viet Cong, while they did commit barbarisms, they were specific political acts. These people just went wherever there was valuables and chopped people up. Okay. These folks in the end wound up with 100 people in the jungle, and these people wound up in Saigon. These people held up to the greatest aerial bombing campaign in the world, and these folks over here fell to a few old mercenaries with some second-rate equipment. Just beat the living hell out of them. True fact. So, which one seems to have more strength? Right. And this is, of course, why anything that even resembles these African militias is doomed, because it has no popular. In Africa, if you hear the word popular, you can bet that nobody wants to be within 200 miles of anything they're doing. Okay? Just set your seal on that, okay? Popular People United Front, death. People's Popular United, death. Popular, death. Do you know what I mean? That's, right? In other areas, maybe not. With almost all of the communists, for sure. Viet Cong, they're a strange trip. I don't know. I've read people from the State Department statements where they basically said, we should just give them a government because they hate the Chinese. And we could have used them against the Chinese directly. Right? Communism, schmommunism, they hate the Chinese. Do you understand? Right? And they still do. This ain't going to go away easy. Now, of course, remember this. If there had been no war in Vietnam, the whole situation in Cambodia would not have turned out the way it had. because the Viet Cong would have never been driven into the interior of Cambodia from our bombing, nor would the Khmer Rouge have been anything but an insignificant band. You know, the Pathat Lao would have never grew because the Vietnamese would have never had any major reason to give a damn to build a logistical network that supplied them. There it is. There it is. As simple as it gets. Oh, they probably would have been moderately communist governments, but they would never have been the bloodbaths that they were, because there wouldn't have been any ethnic cleansing. You'd still just basically have, you know, you wouldn't have had the Hmong being reduced in population. That's another part of the dirty war there. The CIA funded and equipped the Hmong well into the child soldier stage. I mean, there's the actual news footage of, you know, how old are you? Oh, I'm 12. This AK, you know what I mean? Yeah, right. And they're younger than that. Some of them, obviously. It's like, oh, Jesus. You know, that's American taxpayer money there. You know, right? So that would have never had to happen. The whole Cambodia fiasco would have never had to happen again. Without the destabilization of the bombing of eastern Cambodia, which we did do, there's just no way around it. The Cambodian government there's a pretty good chance it could have held together and kept the kind of the stable situation without necessity for massive bloodshed, which that'd have been preferable. Sure, that'd have been genocide avoided. You know, you see, because again, the Vietnamese would have insisted on a controlling interest in Laos and Cambodia. They wouldn't have allowed the Chinese, or probably even the Russians either, to punk them about like that. They really didn't. They really don't. They still basically lord it over those two, and rightfully so in my case. They're the Heron folk of the three. I don't know what to say. You know, you see. And anyway you want to cut it, they did fight us for a 17-year war or whatever for the say as it was.